Hey there, just a quick reminder, we have a mentorship program if you're looking for personalized coaching and mentorship to help guide you to the next level of your interior design business, whatever that might look like for you, whether it's processes and procedures or what services to offer to how to incorporate wellness, intention, or spirituality into your projects. Come join us over at designcoven.com/join. Or if you're just in search to connect with other like-minded interior designers, you can join our free community, also located at designcoven.com/join. Welcome to episode 69 of the Holistic Interior Design Business Podcast. And today we have a panel of 3 interior designers that are going to dive into their origin stories, how they got into the design business, a bit about their experience. And then we also talk about their pricing structure, and which is always really fascinating and interesting since everyone does their pricing differently. And I'll definitely have an episode on how I conduct my pricing because I feel like it's always changing and evolving as we grow. And so we've got 3 awesome designers. So today we've got Rhianna from Tidal Interiors. This is the founder and principal interior designer. We've also got Anna coming on from BCID Studio, who is the co-founder and principal interior designer. She's really cool because she works on both sides of the border in the States and in Mexico. And then we have Elizabeth Aaron from Elizabeth Aaron Interior Design to give us her knowledge as well. And before we bring them on, I'm going to go ahead and pull us a card and light a candle. I'm going to light our candle first to set the space, connecting all of us together with intention and some clarity. The past few days, I've been pulling cards that were all about clarity. And so I'm really feeling that today. So I'm going to go ahead and light this beautiful Mithras and beeswax candle for us and pull a card. I'm going to pull a crystal card from the Radiant Crystal deck. Let's just see what energy we have for all of us today. Picture Jasper. And this is compassion, nurturing, and relaxing. This is connected to the root chakra. And the affirmation here is, I am clear in my vision and future goals. That's so funny. This clarity and vision has just been following me this week. So I obviously need to get super clear as to where I'm going and what I'm bringing forward, especially with all of you guys. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions. All these ladies that are on the panel today are so rich with wisdom and information. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. And I'm sure that they or I would be happy to answer anything there for you. And like I said, this is an interior design panel from October within the Design Coven, which is our mentorship program for holistic interior designers. And it's open to anyone that's interested in the realm of holistic interior design, or maybe you're a student in school, which we do offer a student discount. So that's available to you at 50% off the membership, and membership starts at $39. So students can join for only $19.50 a month, which is really incredible. Then we have different tiers. We have 2 tiers, a virtual tier, and then we have virtual and in-person all in one. So that's available to you. You also get a consultation with me monthly in the second tier. And in the first tier, you also get a consultation with me when you join. So come hang out with us at the Design Coven. This is an example of what we do there. It's a mentorship bridge from design school to the real world. So you get some real world action by being in the mentorship program. You're listening to the Holistic Interior Design Business Podcast. This is a podcast that guides you as a new or inspiring independent interior designer navigating your entrepreneurial path. Here, with my over 20 years experience, I will share my holistic approach to design with intention and ancient practices, including feng shui, all incorporating mind, body, and spirit into my design projects. You will also learn from seasoned interior designers as they give strategies and insight of how they built their businesses and continue to work in the field. Together, we will discover supportive trade partners, new ideas, creatives, and inspiring artists from around the world. I am your host, Rachel Lorraine Crawford. Alrighty, welcome to October's interior design panel. We have Rhianna, Anna, and Elizabeth on today, which I'm super excited to share with all of you. They're amazing designers, so you guys will be able to get some advice from them as experienced designers as we kind of navigate our journeys. And I'm going to go ahead and let's start with Elizabeth. Can you start by just giving us a little bit about who you are, a little bit about your background, and what types of design service you offer and who your clients are?
Yeah, sure. I'm New York City born and raised. I went to New York School of Interior Design. Please excuse me if I drop any bad words because it's just the New York language. I'll try to behave. I'm a residential designer, and my clients range from first-time homeowners to luxury flippers to multi-million-dollar estates, like the dream jobs.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Rhianna.
Yes, I also do residential design. I am also originally from the East Coast. I am the opposite. I'm so far south. Grew up, but almost so far south that it reverts back to New York. So a few F-bombs here and there are way too familiar in my vocabulary. We do kind of exclusive high-end residential design, and our projects normally encompass new builds or full home remodels and then furnishings.
So, and then Anna, can you share a bit about yourself?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Rachel, for inviting me to this panel. My name is Anna. I have a binational interior design firm, so I service both Mexico or northern part of the U.S. border and then San Diego. We do mostly residential, a little bit of flippers with some developers, and then slowly getting into like the hospitality industry, which more like restaurants, breweries, things like that. I've been doing interior design. I graduated about 8 years ago. So I worked for a boutique high-end residential firm for about 3 years before I started to branch out on my own. And I've had BCID studio for about 5 years now. So yeah, excited to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Our designers are starting out on their own, and some of them are also working with other like brands and that kind of thing, or starting to kind of get their feet wet. This is a question for all of you. Is there a certain path that you guys recommend that somebody that's coming into this field take? Like, do you have, or maybe from your experience, you feel like they, there's an easier way for them to kind of start? What would you recommend? And you're welcome to chime in as you are.
I think 100% you should work for an ASID designer or a showroom before launching your own business. Learning on the job gives you the opportunity to develop relationships with the vendors and contractors you're going to be working with when you start your own business. Plus, it gives you an opportunity to see all the back office workings, which is a really huge part of the business that you don't learn about in design school.
I agree. I mean, sorry, Rhianna.
No, go ahead. I was going to say, I totally agree.
I agree. I mean, I think the first thing, ever since you're in school or starting on your own, I think the first thing you should focus on is, I think working for someone else is great, but really figuring out what area or branch of interior design you want to be in, because there's so many branches of it. You can have corporate, boutique interior design, residential, you have commercial, you have hospitality. All of them require, I think, a little bit of, their own niche and strategies. Residential is definitely more hand-holding than if you go something more corporate. So I think defining first what branch you want to get into would be an amazing step. And then from there, like Elizabeth mentioned, getting your starting job in one of those areas that you're interested in, or at least trying it out, right? If you want to feel something a little bit more corporate, then you might want to go and try out companies that have those type of jobs. And if you want to do something more residential and are intrigued in it, then going off with someone that does residential so you can like dip your toes into those pools would be great. And then start, simplifying your decisions from there. That would be awesome, I think. Good starting point.
Yeah, and I have to totally agree with both of you. I know that there's this, like, when you're in school, there's this magical fairy tale of you're going to graduate and you're going to have this beautiful design firm like the day after you graduate, and you're going to have this fabulous design clients that give you endless budgets and no edits. But that is just not reality. And from personal experience, I worked in all facets of design. I did commercial, I did hospitality, I worked for a furniture manufacturer. I am so grateful for all of my experience all the way across the board. And I feel like it just sets you up for becoming more successful on your own. And it sounds awful to say, because I do really love to nurture and support the designers who work for me, but it's much better to make mistakes on someone else's dime than on your own.
Yeah, for sure. And Rhianna, how long did it take for you to work for other people before you actually launched your own business and went off on your own?
I started working into interior design in 2005, and I started my own studio in 2017.
Yeah.
So quite some time. But there was also like other life changes and moving around and seeing where I wanted to be, and really just figuring out what I wanted to do to set myself up for success, and not just necessarily, and everyone operates differently. Some people just jump right in and it's great. But for me, I just did it to a different path.
Yeah. And what about you, Anna? How long did it take for you to work for others?
I've been working ever since I was 18, but mostly like on the customer service side. And then right before I graduated school, I started working for a furniture retail company, getting a little bit more into the works. And I used to work for Williams-Sonoma. So we did a lot of design services, but then I did 3 years for residential interior design. And from there, I branched off. I mean, looking back, it doesn't matter. All decisions are perfect and great at the time that they're done. But looking back, I think I may have wanted to make more mistakes on someone else's dime, but I've done them on mine at this point. But 3 years were great because since it was the boutique interior design firm, we were only 3 people. So I got to wear so many hats in that specific firm. It was like purchasing and designing and project management. So I think that part was good for me for starting off and getting to know all of that back office part.
Yeah, I think that's huge, knowing the back end of actually purchasing and what all goes down with that, because that's a
whole other monster.
Yeah. Monster's the right word.
Yeah, exactly. Elizabeth, what about you?
Oh, I had an internship when I was at NYSID, working for a boutique firm. So it was 2 designers, one focused on space plan, the other focused on the decorating. And I would alternate days between the 2 of them. So it was a great opportunity to use all my skills from school. But after I graduated, I went to 1 and then 2 of the top design firms in New York City, where you have to sign NDAs to work with the clients. The clients were all Society Page, New York Times, or Black Book clients, where you don't even meet with the client. They fly their assistant in, because most of them expatriated and lived right outside the US, so they didn't have to pay taxes. And I mean, they had multi-million-dollar accessory budgets. They designed custom Christoph pieces for their children's kitchens. It was absolute insanity. And while it was a really interesting experience, the truth is, I was the only designer in the firm. The rest of them were all decorators, masquerading as designers. And it really upsets me when people don't make that distinction. The designer needs a minimum of 2 years of schooling. And I think all of you know, you need to know how to draft the basic principles of architecture. You need to understand heating and mechanical systems, plumbing, lighting design. Whereas a decorator, and there are some super talented decorators, don't have that same skill set. And so it upset me that the firms were masquerading as designers when they were decorators, and they would use me to do all of their design stuff. And I learned a lot. I learned how not to run a business. They were all bilking their clients. And I promised I would lead with transparency and integrity when I ran my own business. But there were still very valuable experiences.
Yeah, that seems like a crazy experience.
It was insane. It was insane.
I will have to say, I want to just circle and touch base back on that, to where a lot of the major experience I gained from all the different facets of areas that I worked in and the different types of firms and the different setups. A lot of the experience was how I did not want to do something on my own, and the same in terms of how we charge clients, how I internally operated my studio. It's just until you go through that with different studios, you just, in my opinion, cannot do it on your own, because you're going to make mistakes. And especially if you hire and have people that work under you, you are going to affect them. And I just took, and like you said, it's integrity and transparency in the way that you would want to run your studio.
Yeah, for sure. I think that even for me, like just working for other people, it was like you would just take note. Okay, I'm not doing that. Not doing that. Rhianna, you spoke a little bit about your team. How many people do you have on your team? Can you share with us kind of the lay of the land with like who you have on your team, how many are there, and what are their job titles?
Yes. We're a little loose with job titles because I don't want to pigeonhole people. However, we did just lose our purchasing manager. So if anyone knows of one, we desperately need a purchasing manager. But if we count that person, Stephanie is my lead designer. Kayla is, she was a junior designer, but she's so quickly moving up to being like a really good mid-level designer. Maggie is our design assistant. And then I have some part-time help every once in a while. And then I also have my nanny, which, if anyone knows, is basically cannot run your business if you do not have childcare. And then within the next year, my plan is to hire another senior designer who can take on like full project managing on their own. And at that point, my plan is to kind of cap it and reevaluate what project load we can take on with that many, and try and stay and maintain. Because growing is exhausting.
Yes. Anna, what about you? How many are in your team, or is it just you?
We are a team of 3, so we're pretty small. My studio, I actually co-founded it with a colleague of mine. She's an architect. And then we have a junior designer who's quickly moving up to being a senior designer. We work our studio in like department organizational. So basically, instead of one person kind of managing everything in one project, we have our department. So we have our purchasing department, or my co-partner does purchasing, admin, and then I am more of a lead designer, the principal designer that gets to lead with all the drawings and picking out all the it's fun. I am thinking about hiring someone part-time as well. Workload is starting to grow a little bit as well, but we're only 3 people in our studio.
Nice. Elizabeth?
Oh God, you guys are badass compared to me. I mean, design is such a roller coaster, and sometimes you have too many projects, sometimes you have not enough projects. I'm an erotic New Yorker, and I'm also like a type A control freak, and so I'm like, I can do it all myself. And so I think that my business would probably certainly be bigger, and probably be a heck of a lot easier if I let go of those control tendencies And so instead of hiring a design assistant, what I've done instead is build out a virtual team. And I have developed personal relationships with my vendors and contractors to the point that they're an extension of my business, and they actually manage a lot of the tasks that I would otherwise be giving an assistant. I mean, let this be a lesson to all of you. If you actually, and this is Southern California, so I'm sure all of you do, but in New York, you lead with whoever's the nastiest wins, and it was very, very hierarchical. Whereas here, everyone's really nice, but I've gotten to know my people, the people that I work with on a daily basis, and they're happy to do my to-dos for me. And I know that sounds princessy. I don't mean they're returning my samples for me. I mean that if I have an order, instead of sending it to, my procurement department, I'm actually having my vendors track my orders for me, and I'll just check in with them periodically.
Awesome. No, it's great. I love seeing everyone, how they kind of create their space. And that's why I wanted you guys to come on, so that we can all see like what all the different personalities are. How do people build their businesses? How do they work? Who do they bring in? Just so that we can see that there's a multitude of ways, and you can always hybrid as we go. And there's no like one way to do things. So I think that's awesome. Like being able to see a virtual design firm versus, having a team all together. And Anna and Rhianna, do you guys all come together in a studio, or are you guys working from home, or what's the dynamic there?
I'm pretty flexible with my team. We do have a weekly, and I do have one more other person on my team that, talking about letting go, is also, I mean, if you own a design firm, you have control issues. Did all of the drawings on all of our projects, because I was just very particular about, I worked at an architecture firm. I am meticulous about our construction documents and our spec packages. And I have since let that go to a very trusted CAD drafter who does all of our drawings now. So she's also part of our team, and she is fully remote. But everyone else is flexible. We come into the studio as much as we can. I also have designers who have children who work with me, and school schedules and pickup and sick. And so we are as flexible as possible. We have some in-person weekly production meeting, where we go through every single client as a team and talk about it, and who needs help, and what phase that is, invoice, all the good stuff. But other than that, I mean, as everyone knows, you have to run around to clients. You're sometimes going to showrooms, you're going to meetings, you're doing all of this. So necessarily being in the studio like 9 to 5 is just not a feasible situation. Although I feel like there's lots of kind of, I hate to use old school, but there are a lot of old school firms that operate like that and require their designers to be in studio Monday through Friday, designated hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have an office. I have a studio in Tijuana, and then I co-share an office studio in downtown San Diego with an architect. I'm in and out all the time, like Rhianna says, like, I don't know, but it's sometimes I don't get to enjoy my studio as much because I'm running around in projects and doing everything, but I really like it because I do have meetings in my studio with clients. Sometimes it's at their home or residence, but it's nice to have a place where I know I can be there. Like I always, Mondays and Fridays, I never schedule meetings out of office because I like to start my day in the office, get organized, and then kind of end my day in the office as well. So I'm usually not in the studio Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, or in and out. But yeah, I really enjoy it. Our junior designer is here full time all the time. I think also people are dropping off samples, packages are coming in. So it's nice to have someone that's, there to receive and I don't know, just anything that's needed. But during pandemic, we did remote also for a while. So I've been in this, I've had both offices since January.
Okay.
9 months.
Yeah, I mean, that must be a heck of a lot of juggling between 2 countries and 2 different offices across the border. That's pretty amazing.
Meters and feet, yeah, I have to switch back and forth, but
I will tell all designers, you need to learn meters. You need to learn that. Like, come on.
that's her system.
Yeah, if you order lighting or if you order anywhere outside the United States, it's all in metric. It's not that hard.
Centimeters.
Learn it.
Yeah. Just learn the calculation and then you're fine. So then
Yeah.
Awesome. What has been your biggest struggle navigating your own business as you guys have gone off? Was there something that surprised you or, that kind of took you a little off guard?
For me, it's been figuring out how many jobs I can handle on my own at the same time. I find that my sweet spot is between 7 and 13 projects, depending on how big they are. But the point is, if you're carrying too many projects, you're going to make mistakes. And those mistakes can get expensive. And then you have to come clean with the clients and the contractors and let them know that you've made mistakes. And by the way, if you make mistakes, always be honest. And be honest as early as possible. The client might be upset, the contractor might be upset, but you're going to be able to sleep at night because you're not worrying who's going to find out what went wrong when. It's hard to say no, but you do need to be honest about what your ideal workload is.
Yeah.
Yeah. What surprised me the most was that it's like what Elizabeth just said. It's like being an independent interior designer requires so much commitment and sacrifice. And when I started, I thought it was going to be easier and better than having a 9-to-5. But I mean, they both have their pros and their cons. But being an independent designer is not always for everyone because all responsibility and liability is carried on your shoulders. And there's a lot to digest sometimes. It's like Elizabeth said, like any mistakes, deadlines, people are expecting a lot of information from you and it has to be very accurate. So I think that's what surprised me the most, that when I used to work my 9-to-5, it was more obviously easy peasy, relaxed. You go in, you do your work and then kind of clock out. But then when I started on my own, it became very real how a very simple decision a GC can call you to ask can carry so much weight. Because in interior design and everyone that's in school and once they get out there in the field, they're going to learn that it's an entire process. So without one thing, nothing can move forward, right? And if you don't have a specific information, then they can't continue tiling or plumbing or whatever. And it's the stupidest thing because figuring out what trim can be on a tile or something is like stopping everything else. And once you make that decision and something is laid down, installed, there is going back, but it's going to cost you. So it's just that part. That part has surprised me and it keeps surprising me.
For me, the biggest, I guess, surprise was how much you need to learn to let go of and being okay with that, but also still maintaining a lot of responsibility. I will have to say that everyone on this panel, from what I'm gathering, we are all designers that have our own business. There's many people who want to own a business and they decide that they can do that in interior design. And they run their business very differently. They outsource everything and they hire and then they market and they very kind of efficiently and successful. Some of them are very successfully run their own business. And that is, it's a different model. So it was my surprise, like running into that a lot with other designers who owned their business and kind of evaluating how I was running my firm versus them. It wasn't a surprise, but it's just a learning to, because it does not exist. However, I'm going to say finding a family and work balance when you do run your own design business, because it is all encompassing. You you think you're going to have Fridays, Aloha Fridays, but they do not exist. You will work more than you ever have before, but it just feels differently because you are working for yourselves. And that is why also talking with my team and I run a very democratic studio. We talk about everything. I really want to get to a point of kind of normalcy and calming out so we all can have a balance, because bigger is not always better. And that's just where we are.
Yeah, and that's super interesting. You talking about people just wanting to have a business and then going into the design in that way.
I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
I think that businesses like that come from influencers, and while they look like they have it all on Instagram, their businesses aren't going to have the longevity that ours do, because they're not founded on the same principles.
No, and I agree. And there's no competition. It's just a difference. And I do think they can be very successful if they hire very well, which I have seen.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think that was something that was probably around maybe 10 years ago, right? It seems like maybe that was something that's kind of evolved through this design industry and all the other things that are happening, because I don't remember seeing it before then, unless it was happening and I just didn't realize. Was there anything that you guys wish you knew? I mean, we kind of talked a little bit about that, but is there anything that you wish you could tell yourself maybe at that time when you first started to go off on your own, advice that you would give yourself first starting out?
Oh, I would say for sure, surround yourself with a community of designers to bounce ideas off of, because you can't possibly know everything. So having a group willing to share resources, ideas, and experiences is like having a business partner. I have 3 best friends from graduate school, and they're all over the country. And so they're not in direct competition with me. So it's easy to feel comfortable communicating with them. But we communicate on a regular basis. We go to the trade shows together. And if somebody's trying to identify a chair, we'll send it out to the group, and inevitably one of us has the answer. If we've got a tricky space plan, one of us inevitably has the answer. So it's really nice. I mean, you ladies who have your own firms, you have your community, but like me, the solopreneurs, we don't. And so it's nice to have a community.
Yeah. I mean, like I mentioned previously, and this is my personal experience, some people are much more defined when they're in school as to what branch they want to go out to. I started architecture for 2 years and then I dropped out and went into interior design. But when I started, I don't know if I mentioned it, but I studied at the Design Institute of San Diego, and it's an awesome school. I love it. But our last year, we started getting a little bit more into the business side. We only had like 2-3 classes of business part. But what I'm trying to say is, I wish that last semester of school, or that last year semester of school, I had done more research as to what branch of interior design I wanted to go onto. Like I mentioned, there's friends of mine, or students that we went to school together, and right off the bat, they always knew, I want to go work at a huge firm, all the benefits, 9 to 5, and that's just the life I want forever and ever. And I'm like, okay, great. And I was very I didn't know, so I would just suggest whether it's doing internships or finding the time to interview some designers, or getting into the community, going to ASID events, making the right questions. Don't be afraid to do them. Don't be embarrassed to ask the questions. What's the pay like? How do entry-level jobs start? Do I want to go more corporate? Do I want to branch out on my own? And then definitely joining all the associations or events. There's always so many more levels you can explore and get into, depending on what branch you want to get into. That's why I think the startup point would be what interests you in the interior design world. You can be a furniture maker if you want, and then that's just it. There's so many intricate parts to fabricating a chair. So, just exploring that part, defining that part first, right? And then kind of go from there and figuring out what certifications could, not necessarily that you need, but will benefit you to keep growing in that area. And it's always fine to change your mind, but all the experience and all the knowledge you learn along the way will help you as you continue on your interior design journey. So I insist do a little bit more research on the specific branch you want to focus on, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think, having that
for me was the hardest. That was the hardest part. Some people know, I want to do residential, and perfect, great. And but figuring that part first. And if you're defined and you know where you want to go, then just figure out what you need to get there. Even in residential design or in corporate design, there's branches within that part, right? Like we mentioned, admin or purchasing or designing or specifying. So there's just so many parts to grow in, right? So yeah, those are my 2 cents.
Thank you.
I would say that for myself, if I went back to tell myself something, to schedule a vacation and take them. It might feel like the sky is going to fall if you are gone, but your clients will survive. Your projects will survive. If you have set them up correctly, you can be gone for a week or 2 and it will be okay. Just take them, because then you won't ever take them. And I do want to circle back to what you mentioned before about us having our own firms.
Yeah.
And kind of stuff being internalized. That's a little true, but I have a great community of designers who don't work for me. They reach out to me all the time, and I reach out to them like, hey, do you know where this light is from? This and that. I had a designer who is on this literally 2 doors down from me, come into the studio, be like, hey, I'm working on this kitchen, I'm stuck. And I'm of course like, okay, stop, we'll help you. And we openly share information in our studio. And I hate to keep using the phrase old school, but just, we don't operate like previous design firms did, where their worth was almost valued of this privileged knowledge that they would hold on so tight to. And we just don't operate like that. I'm like, here, you want my CAD title block so you don't have to spend hours doing it? Take it. Here's this chair. Oh, I found this great vendor. Use this person. Oh, here's our rep. We're just like open, free information like that. And a lot of people don't operate like that. For me, I feel like what goes around comes around. So when I need help, I feel like I can reach out and ask, and people are hopefully willing to share. But that is still a huge part, whether you work on your own or you have a team with you. I don't think they're exclusive of each other.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was part of like why I wanted to create this group, is to create that community, to be able to be open, to be able to share all of our resources, give people what they need, support each other. Because you're right. Like when I got out of school, it was like nobody shared anything. It was so secretive, and I was just like,
it's a very strange mentality to me. And because from my point of view, there isn't necessarily competition, to where when you get to a certain point, you will very much learn that a client that works with you and you guys have a great relationship is a good fit, versus the client or versus the designer next door who gets a job that you thought you wanted. It wouldn't have been right. Like that client wasn't right. You need to curate the clients that you work well with and work together and are meant to be. Otherwise, that's when you hear all these nightmare like client stories of they didn't get along, or they're not paying invoices, or this or something, is because it wasn't right to begin with.
Yeah, for sure.
We can all do residential design, same zip code if we want.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, Rhianna has her style. Elizabeth has her special touch style. So when you see that, it's, word of mouth. I've had designers, or my previous boss, she sends over people to me like, hey, I don't have the workload anymore, but I'm going to share it with someone else. So at the end of the day, there's room for all of us to work together and share experiences or vendors and sources. And yeah, I love it.
Yeah, for sure. One of the things that gets a little tricky is pricing. Are you guys willing to share? Like, do you guys do hourly? Do you do flat rate? Do you do a combination? Like, how do you guys determine how you're pricing your projects?
My girlfriends and I from grad school all tried different models, and we all came back to the fact that hourly is the fairest way to do it. Now, I was actually reading an article in Business of Home yesterday, and if you don't subscribe to Business of Home, do. Their print magazine and their virtual newsletters weekly,
They're great.
are wealths of resource. I love it. Very much along the lines of Rachel, is it's very collaborative, it's very informative, it's very supportive. But they talked about different, that they'll do hourly with some clients and they'll do flat with others. For me and my girlfriends, what we found is some clients are going to be more indecisive than others. So if you do a flat rate, you're taking the short end of the stick. If you're actually flying through because you've done tons of kitchens and baths and you have a method of specifying, the client is going to feel shortchanged with the flat rate. So I feel for me, the most transparent way to do it is hourly. But that works for me because I'm a solopreneur. You ladies who run your own businesses, probably it gets confusing to do flat rate because your hourly is going to be different than your junior designers. So take it away, ladies, and say what you do.
Well, I mean, that's the what I explained to a lot of clients is that when during like our initial client call, I very much encourage them to speak with other designers as well, because our industry is bananas. There are no standards. Everyone does everything differently, the way that works best for them, and different in that it doesn't fit one for all clients or projects. I've been doing this for quite some time. And we operate, and I have a payroll. So obligations. We operate on a flat fee with some hourly charges. My philosophy behind that is my value is not time-based. It is our designs and our knowledge and the years and years of design that I have done that go into doing your project as quickly and efficiently as it does get completed. I just know what goes into a certain scope of work. So our flat fee is actually always different per project because it's associated with a very, very detailed scope of work, which is clearly defined up front and very clearly agreed upon. And then there's never any feedback of what is this bill for? What is this time for? What is this? It is all completely agreed upon and negotiated up front. And there is never any pushback on our end. And the one thing that we do charge hourly for is styling and accessorizing, because that is, it's just a beast on its own. Like we all love doing it, talking about like design. And when I refer to design, it's more like interior architecture versus furnishings and accessorizing and styling is just this whole other conglomerate of of design, and it to me has the largest variable. It could take us like 3 days to do a 500 square foot space, or it could take us 3 days to do a 3,000 square foot home. It's just, so we just charge hourly for that, and it's because it's all over the place, and that's the one thing we charge hourly for.
So can I ask you, Rhianna, is it something like, obviously depending on the scope, and I'll share how I build because I have various ways of billing, but can I ask, depending on the scope of work, do you kind of guesstimate your hours and then multiply it by an hourly fee, or do you guesstimate it by the time you're going to spend on the project? Let's say it's 6 months, and then it's like a fixed fee for 6 months, or that same fixed fee for 12 months. Like, how do you I'm intrigued because I've struggled a lot with the billing part. And I personally, I kind of guesstimate my hours that's going to take me depending on the scope of work, like you mentioned, and then I multiply it by my hourly base. But then sometimes I have that feeling that Elizabeth mentioned, that I end up getting the short end of the stick, because I end up if I guesstimated 40 hours, the reality is I end up investing 60, So I'm wondering if you do just like, I will not always, but I will always charge, I don't know, just to give up a round number, but like $1,000 a month for 6 months, 10 months, 12 months. Like, do you have a specific way of coming up with that number?
Yes, very much so. So two things. When we say hourly is not, when you're charging hourly, you are not charging every minute of that you've put into that project. When you are billing a client hourly, you're billing like a threshold, because you're like, oh, how can I charge them 3 hours of sourcing for this lamp because I had in my mind that I wanted this specific lamp and couldn't find it.
Right.
It's just not feasible. 100 is an easy number, so I'm going to use 100. So say we're doing a full house construction, I just know what goes into it. And I know, and it depending on like the bathrooms, the size of the house. So what we will do is we take a 50% deposit up front, because the design process is very front loaded. And then we take the remaining amount. So say it was 50, we divide that among the remaining months of equal payments until the project is complete. We always overestimate by 2.
Got it.
So say it was 100, we charge 50 up front, and then the remaining 50 is divided among monthly payments. And they know,
I'm guessing
15th of every month, they're getting a bill for $2,500 or something.
Right. And then, okay. I bill differently. I bill hourly as consultant. If people, ask for it and it's requested, right now I have 9 projects, 2 of them are hourly. So I round to the nearest 15-minute, because sometimes it is a call that takes 15 minutes, 30 minutes, but it's still, answering. So I round up to every quarter of the hour. I bill them at the end of the month. And then I have clients that are like hospitality, where I just do a X amount per square foot. So if it's
numbers in hospitality, that's how it's billed. And I think that coming from hospitality and coming from a commercial, I am much more comfortable with a fixed fee. Just because I also have a lot of historical data of hours spent on certain types of projects, and with my
you already know.
And with my designers who work for me, I go back and reconcile their hours versus what we charged, and make sure that we're tracking correctly.
Right. Okay. Yeah. When I charge hourly, I'm very transparent. Like, my time is at X amount, and then my junior designer, which she will be the one drafting, she's the lower rate. And I let them know, like, she spent 20 hours on your drawings, I only spent 5, right? Like, we're seeing it. But hospitality projects, which I'm barely getting into, it's by the square foot. If a colleague or an architect or a GC invites me to the project, I let them know, like, I charge $8 a square foot, but for you, it'll be $7. You have the freedom to charge your client $8 or be as transparent, because if you want to, like, we want to keep working, or I want them to keep recommending me. And then I also have clients who sometimes don't require a turnkey type of project, like finish to end. They just want the concept and the design. They don't want the drawings. So I guess it depends on the client and what they need. If they do need me to do the designing and sourcing, and then we kind of stop there. And then if they do need drawings, then we'll move on to that. But I always recommend, so I do them almost for certain projects, almost like packages. So you have your design and concept, it's X amount. And then you have your contract documents, which will be more investment. It does take more time. And then if you want me to supervise the implementation of it, then there's a different amount, right? So out of the 9 projects I have, I'm going to say I have about 4 ways of billing, because I have the hospitality, which is by square foot. I have 2 of those, 2 that are consultant, and then some that are just the design. And then let me see how I feel if I need drawings along the way. Sure, why not? And then I have a couple turnkey, where it's just a monthly installment. Until we terminate the contract, there's additional services. If they have more than 1 revision, those ones are charged hourly. So within those fixed fee projects, there's additional services that are consulted at an hourly rate. Yeah. And finally, what I do is I do charge a fixed fee for all the design, drawings, and implementation. But then for purchasing, like Rhianna said, is kind of a different monster. I am very transparent. I give my clients my trade pricing, like as it goes, but I charge 20% over that. So that is my designer fee. So sometimes a project is turnkey, and when I need turnkey, I do separate my contracts, even if it's the same project, into 2 phases. So we have your finishes phases and designing and more of a on-site thing. And then we have your decoration and furnishings and styling contract. So for that, there's just a 20% over the trade pricing, or if there is no trade pricing, it's just 20% over that, because that complements all the purchasing, keeping track of everything, making sure it arrives on time, if you have to do any returns, and then installing it, right? So we do a white glove delivery. Obviously, the client is the one that pays for all of these additional services, storage, the white glove, and everything that's not included, right? So there's a bunch of ways to bill. Definitely, it's all kind of trial and error situation. I mean, since I started my business, I did have to like kind of bend my arm a little bit and fine, I'll do design and concept for 1 fee and then we'll figure it out. Slowly, I'm getting out of that, because it sometimes does suck that I do the design and concept part, but I never see it follow through. Like the client takes care of it. They're not going to design it. They're not going to draw it. They're going to figure out with their GCs on site, or the supervision or implementation. I'm not making sure that the tile is being installed correctly or the materials. So that I'm trying to kind of phase out from that part. Yeah. But when you start business, you kind of have to like grab what's coming towards you. The nice thing is that designing in the first phase, that schematic part and the design development, I mean, it's a couple of weeks. So it's whatever you charge, you're gonna be investing like 4 weeks at the most to that project, 6 weeks if there's revisions. So there's a bunch of ways to do it.
Yeah, I do want to circle back to what you mentioned about how you charge different hourly rates for different people on your team. We do not do that. Everyone gets charged the same hourly for a few reasons. I just personally feel like it like puts a monetary devalued on people's time, and it also it gives the client a mental association with that person, to where if a client calls and is like, well, I want to pay for you. I'm not paying for I'm not paying for a junior designer. I'm paying for your time. And it goes both ways, to where, well, if I don't have her do something, I don't have the time to do something else. So her time is not more important than my time. Her time is highly valuable to me. So it's just, I would just be wary when you start to hire and when you start to bill, about separating that out, to where it's just an hourly fee across the board. Mm-hmm. And then they're not getting, and then there's also no pushback on invoices from clients, about like, oh, well, why did this junior designer take 10 hours to do this? Like, could you have done it in 3 hours, but charge me more hourly and then I would have paid less? Like, that is just ridiculous, massive. Yeah.
I just wanted to come on because we're coming up to the top of the hour, and I think there's a couple of questions here from Jamie and from Nicole. Jamie asked, Elizabeth, do you charge different hourly rates depending on the job?
I charge the same exact hourly rate regardless. To Anna's point, if a client is purchasing through me, I extend trade pricing. I set that standard ages ago because we have the internet and people know what things cost. So like Anna, I'll extend trade pricing and then I'll charge a sliding scale depending if something is really inexpensive, I'll take a higher commission. If it's less expensive, I'll take a lower commission. But like Rhianna, I don't have clients push back because I'm always being super fair and transparent.
And then Nicole had a question for Rhianna. She wanted to know, does your flat rate fee include furnishing?
It depends. The scope of project is always different. So say, for example, we have a whole home construction project. There would be like option 1 and option 2. And option 1 is we do all the construction, and option 2 is we do all the construction plus furnishings. So it would be just 50 and 100 is easy. So like option A is 50 and option B is 100 because it's double the work.
Anyone else have any questions before we wrap up?
Oh no, I was going to say this was awesome.
Yeah.
Oh my God, Rachel, yes. Thank you for the opportunity. It's really remarkable what you do. I don't know how you get everything done with the hours in your day. I don't know if you somehow have the magic to create extra hours, but what you're doing is a tremendous value to all different parts of the community. So thank you.
Thank you. That's very sweet.
That was very well spoken. Yes, I have to agree with that 100%.
Well, thanks. Thank you, guys. Yeah. And if you know of any designers that, I think what I'm going to do is kind of shift the format a little bit and have somebody come on to talk about like a certain thing. I was thinking about like biophilic design, incorporating plants and that kind of thing, having them come on the podcast to share what the heck it is. And then sort of like a workshop with the designers to like share, like, how do you implement it? Like, what are the steps to include that into your work? And also there's like visibility and like, showing up live and being able to be seen. And so different sort of mini workshops within the community. And I feel like we've gotten a ton with learning from, this design panel. And then other things I've been thinking about is like creating some sort of an in-person mixer meetup for like all the designers that have been on the panels, connecting with the actual members and other people and maybe reps, and like doing something more interactive just to kind of create this community and support, because I feel like everyone that's come on, all of you guys have just been so wonderful in sharing your wisdom and being so open. And it's just been really, really cool to get to know you all better too. And like being able to go to events together and like see each other and just having that, that camaraderie of being in it together through the struggle that we all go through.
And if you are open to even expanding, it would be, I would think it would be beneficial for people learning if you brought in like an upholsterer, custom upholsterer, or like a custom furniture fabricator, so that they can communicate to new designers how they operate and how they need a designer to transfer information to them to get the output that they want.
Exactly. Yeah, we'll definitely be doing an in-person upholstery workroom, showroom thing. We've done that with drapery, but upholstery I think is huge. So we'll definitely do that. And if you guys have any other people that you think would benefit as far as like vendors or your own upholsterer or any other workrooms or showrooms that you think would love to share their knowledge with all of us, I'll definitely reach out to them. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the Holistic Interior Design Business Podcast. If it's one that you have been enjoying, please share with anyone else that you think can benefit from this knowledge, and leave us a 5-star review that helps us get seen and found by other new and aspiring interior designers. And if you're looking for mentorship, I invite you to join our club here at the Design Coven. It's a bridge between school and real life interior design. We get in much deeper there. We have virtual and in-person events, so everyone is welcome. You don't need to have a design degree to be part of it, just an interest in holistic interior design. I also want to thank our editor, Marcy Ferry, Blake Ferris, for all of her special help with the podcast, our social media posts, newsletter, and lastly, Kinseth Thibodeau, who is our music composer. Until next time, be well, and we will see each other soon.